And a culture of corruption and entitlement is always going to develop within a government if it's been in power for too long. This is a law that's as immutable as that of gravity, especially within a governance system like Canada's, which has little to no provisions for accountability or transparency between elections. And this issue isn't even a left or right one. This happens with governments of all ideological leanings. I mean, conservative governments have dealt with corruption as well. Opportunists and grifters don't have political ideologies. Their only allegiance is to themselves and their wallets, and they'll attach themselves to any government or bureaucracy if they see opportunities for personal gain. The longer an administration remains in power, the more entrenched these corrupted parasites are going to become, and the cozier they get with senior bureaucrats and ministers within the government. Inside dealing and influence peddling becomes endemic, and the participants don't think twice about siphoning off tax dollars for themselves and, of course, their friends. The crooks robbing taxpayers, they rarely directly embezzle from the government. Their methods usually involve sole sourcing government contracts with high payments and low expectations of productivity, if indeed there's any expectations of productivity at all. I mean, the Arrive scam app scandal is a perfect example. Tens of millions of tax dollars funneled to a number of companies to create an app that works terribly and could have been created for a few $100,000. Two grifters working from a garage with no qualification to create apps somehow managed to get these contracts. And while it's now been exposed, it's doubtful that anybody's ever going to be held accountable. The contract recipients are stonewalling. The bureaucrats involved have already been covering things up. And the government, of course, has no appetite to see this crime investigated any further. The Arrive scam app, that's just one of hundreds of contracts that the federal government gives out. We've barely seen the tip of the iceberg of how badly Canadian tax dollars are being abused. And things are going to become a whole lot worse. You see, the Trudeau government's taken a sharp shift in strategy lately. I mean, they had been trying to maintain their hold on power through increasing authoritarianism through the years. They hoped if they could control the media and internet communications enough, they'd be able to save themselves from an eventual electoral loss. I think reality has sort of sunk in. Their strategies failed as Liberal support's hitting record lows no matter what the government tries. They know they're going to lose the next election. So now the Liberal government has embraced the tactic of massive spending increases, and that's to serve two purposes. Since they know they can't win the next election, they're going to salt the earth as heavily as they can to sabotage the next government. Increasing spending is easy. Cutting spending is difficult, and they know that. If and when the next federal government starts to cut into federal spending programs, the people who've become dependent on those programs will become hysteric, and the Liberal Party will use that to play up the heartlessness of the Conservatives. I'm sure legacy media will dutifully do their role as well. Those nasty Conservatives cutting all those programs. So Trudeau's entrenching all those programs right now, and they're going to be a problem later. So they're looking far ahead, and they're hoping they can create the circumstances where it's only going to be one election cycle in the political wilderness for the Liberals. The other reason they're releasing all these new spending programs is even more odious. And it's more odious than trying to win the election down the road. They're feathering the beds of themselves and their connected friends before they head out the door. You see, the larger the spending program and the vaguer the mandate the program is, the easier it'll be to abuse it. Now think about it. Trudeau's announcement of spending $2.4 billion to help develop Canada's AI industry is a perfect example. Hundreds of contracts are going to be going out worth millions of dollars, handed out with little oversight and no way to measure if they're achieving a tangible goal that benefits citizens. Rest assured, there's countless government insiders right now creating companies with AI development in the company description in anticipation of getting these juicy handouts. It's going to be impossible to sift through them all to find out which, if any, of the contractors are legitimate, which is, of course, the intent. I mean, just barrage the money in there and don't worry, people won't see the millions going out the door. I mean, this is a government that spent $45 million on a gun buyback program that didn't manage to buy a single gun. Does anybody really believe this administration can effectively control the evolution and development of artificial intelligence? They don't even have intelligence in the Prime Minister's office as it is. They sure as hell aren't going to make an artificial one. The announcements have been coming hot and heavy, and they're facing little scrutiny, of course, from the legacy media outlets who themselves have become dependent on these handouts. The Trudeau government's swirling the drain, but the unprincipled parasites attached to it will be filling their pockets as fast as they can in the next 18 months or so. Strap in, folks. It's going to get worse, and Canada is broken.